da 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 do 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 da 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 do do. All right. Da 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 do do do. Hey now. Da 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 do do. Mr. Kovacs class.
It's really fun.
It's Mr. Kovacs class.
You might learn a ton.
It's Mr. Kovacs class.
It's interesting too.
It's Mr. Kovacs class.
And he's super cool.
It's Mr. Kovacs class.
All right, we're back to hearts. So like the AA people, the A Day people, you guys opened hearts, looked at Inside Open Hearts on Tuesday. You got a little tour of it. Hopefully you've been able to label some parts. And today the BBs will do the same thing. Of course, the important thing before we cut into any heart is we got to make sure that nope, not beat. You know, stethoscope, this instrument, when you listen to the heart, you're listening to really the sound. It's the sound of the valves closing on the inside of the heart. Every time your heart squeezes, the valve slams shut, and you hear this. So it's like two squeezes: atrium squeeze, and ventricle squeeze. So it's boom, 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 and it does that, 70 times a minute or something like that, right? So if you're listening to the heart, when they're listening to the heart, they're listening to the valves. So they can tell you if the valves get sticky, you might go boom, 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 and then that way, like you can hear blood flowing backwards. We call that a heart murmur, and that might be like if you never had one before, and all of a sudden you have one, it might say, "Oh, maybe you got an infection in your, inside the heart or something, or maybe there's a valve needs to be replaced." That can be done. All right, so the folks that are here today, they're opening up hearts. There's another one. This one's been opened. So today they're going to be looking for the parts we're looking for are ventricles, atria, and the big blood vessels going out of the. All right, so I cut into the hearts for you, but remember, to figure out right and left, you have to look at the ventricles. Ventricles are the spaces, right? And you got to look at the thickness of the walls. Right there, right. This is a ventricle. That's the thickness of the walls. And then if we open up this guy here and look at the thickness of its wall, bend it. Look how much thicker that is. I mean, this guy's really got a thick, so that's so the stronger side is always the left side, because that's the one that's got to push blood everywhere. The right side only has to push blood to the lungs, right? Not very far, it doesn't have to be that strong. All right, so let's see. So those are the ventricles. We got right and left. If we want to find the atria, we got to go kind of backwards, and I should be able to push through a valve, like here, and now I'm popping up that's the right atrium. I know it's the right atrium because it's on top of the right ventricle, all right? I'm in the right atrium, right ventricle, right? That makes sense. All right, on the left side, I should be able to do the same thing. There's the left atrium. How do I know that's the left atrium? There it is, hello. Because it's on top of the left ventricle and connected to the left ventricle. It's gotta be the left atrium. So like, when blood comes into the heart from veins, it goes to the atria first. The atria is filled with blood, and then they give a little squeeze, lub, into the ventricles. Then the ventricles squeeze, dub. So it's a da-dum, da-dum. And in between each squeezes, there's valves. And that's what you hear with the stethoscope, the valves closing. In fact, if you open up, let's see if I can get a good shot at that. These little stringy things are attached, those heartstrings are attached to the valves. And so the actual physical motion of the heart squeezing pulls the valves shut. When blood gets into the ventricles, it gives a big squeeze, and blood goes through another valve and then out. That's the dub. Lub dub, lub dub. And goes out through right here on the right side, I know that this big blood vessel is called the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary means lungs. This blood vessel is going to the lungs. The blood in this vessel right here is sad, everybody. The blood doesn't have any oxygen. That's why it's going to the lungs. Right? It comes back to the left side, to the left atrium, gets pushed into the left ventricle. Since it came from the lungs, it's going to have lots of oxygen. It'll be happy, everybody. And then it gets pushed through the biggest blood vessel you got. Whoa, look at the size of that. This is an artery. This is called aorta, this is the biggest blood vessel you have. This blood vessel is like it's huge, but it's also very like elastic and fairly strong. Arteries tend to have muscles in them, and actually your brain can control like how big or control the amount of blood flow through an artery by squeezing the muscles or not. The aorta is a huge, strong artery. It's under immense pressure. If you had a defect in your aorta, like if there was a leak, or if one of the walls was so weak it just ballooned out, we call that an aneurysm, and that is bad news. That's a tough one to recover from. All right. So blood goes into the right side through a vein. That vein, actually, the big vein that comes right into the heart is called the vena cava. There's one coming from the brain and one coming from down below. They're not on these hearts, they've been cut off. Into an atrium, little squeeze, lub, into the ventricle, big squeeze, dub, out through the pulmonary artery, to the lungs. Back to the heart, through the pulmonary vein, to the left side, into the left atrium. Little squeeze, lub, down to the left ventricle, big squeeze, dub, out the top of the heart through the aorta. And then that blood goes, well, who knows where it goes? I mean, you got to get blood to every tissue. So the aorta is like the main highway, and then it branches into smaller and smaller arteries that reach every tissue in your body and then come back. So it takes a lot to keep you going. So a lot of work for this little guy. And what I always think about him is like, when does he ever get to rest? I guess really, he gets no rest. You get one rest, and that's at the end. All right, so B's are here. I'll lead you through the dissection. A's, you are welcome to watch through the Google Meet, but you will need to work on your part 2, and then, which is you're going to basically show me you understand where blood goes through the circulatory system. And then your part 3, again, you'll be watching, I think today actually you're gonna watch our Brain Pop pals talk about hearts and blood and stuff. All right, so it should be a good day. Let's go get them.